What happens when we erase all mentions of trans people or gender at all from scientific research, like the Trump administration is currently trying to do? Well, history can tell us some things, and spoiler alert, it's not good. Last week, news broke that the Trump administration had ordered all references to DEI and gender identity to be purged from federal research by any scientists affiliated with the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The move comes alongside similar directives to purge mentions of pronouns, gender identity, and trans people from government websites at large. And the CDC has already removed all references to trans people and gender identity from its website, including guidelines around everything from HIV medication to reproductive health. And agency staff were directed to contact scientific journals and pull back their research that did not comply with Trump's executive order about there being only two genders. And that includes not just CDC publications, but any research by CDC researchers being considered by a medical or scientific journal. Staff were reportedly sent a list of banned words and phrases ranging from transgender to pregnant person to biological female. And let's be clear and name this what it is. It's censorship, which is rich coming from a far-right conservative government who's been all about these ideas of free speech and free expression. This is the opposite of free speech, and it's one step in what seems like a larger game plan of removing trans people from public life entirely. Research from the CDC may seem like this academic thought experiment far removed from public life, but that is far from the truth. These surveys and studies not only influence government policy, but history and the development of medications and treatments. Demographic data, not only about the number of trans people, but basic points like pregnancy or sexuality, is vital in saving lives, not just now, but for years and decades to come. Because of the guidelines around gender, pretty much any major study could fall under the censorship, including research on everything from COVID-19 to cancer, and that's in addition to the specific research that looks at the experiences of queer and trans people. And many studies and surveys are done every year to identify trends. Removing something like gender identity or sexual orientation demographic info from years of data will prevent analysis of that data in the future. And this is vital demographic information that Trump has effectively just created a giant gaping historical hole in. And we've seen this sort of thing happen before. Flashback to the early 20th century, when Germany was at the forefront of research into sexuality and gender. Founded by Magnus Hirschfeld, the Institute for Sexual Science operated from 1913 until 1933 and pioneered research and treatment around a variety of LGBTQ topics. The Institute made a ton of progress in supporting and treating queer and trans people. And then what happened in Germany in 1933? The Nazis! The initial period of Nazi rule saw the cancellation of public research and the disbanding of Hirschfeld's institute. Its library of research was burned in the street, with some estimates suggesting as many as 25,000 books were burned. What's happening in the US right now may not seem as dramatic as book burnings in the street, but this level of data wipe and censorship comes from the same place, eliminating public records of people existing. Because digital research data like this is our primary way of collecting and accessing data these days, how can you develop medication or policy or supports for a group of people you have no data on? How can you justify the number of people policy impacts if you aren't tracking them at all? It's important that we name censorship on this level for what it is, because it can quickly escalate beyond the walls of academic research and straight into our daily lives.